Kingdoms come and kingdoms fade, but change, but always you remain the same. You find me here at your feet again. I am guilty, ashamed of what I've done, what I've become. These hands are dirty. I dare not lift them up to the Holy One. You find my car at your feet again. Everything I am, reaching out, I surrender. You take me up in your love again, and my soul will say that I am praised forever. Afraid I've let you down. Inside I but in your eyes there's only grace now. You find my car at your feet again. I say everything I am, reaching out, I surrender. You take me up in your love again, and my soul will say that I am praised forever. You find my car at your feet again. I pray everything I am, reaching out, I surrender. You take me up in your love again, and my soul will say that I am praised forever. You find my car at your feet.
Again, as we go online. So welcome everybody to our I'm the teacher for the class. Are you holiday? Chris, and she said, "Did you notice all the beautiful lights?" And I told her, always lights everywhere, it seems like. Somehow, for me at least, this year has been a year of and I don't think I've been, the way that I've been focused and leading into Christmas doesn't. We're not out in the stores, and at least we are because of the pandemic. Of our class, contentment. Chapter 4, verses 10, an encouragement. Paul writes to the Philippians, "Revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had," speaking of being, to be content. So, and I know I and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Praise God. So, the secret of being content. I wonder, have you learned the secret of being content? That we struggle with this at times. And going through, or whether it be a health difficulty or financial stress, hard to be content. And we wish for something different than what we actually. Contentment comes from something much. Oh, the outer circumstances change. He has learned. So, I think one thing that we need to do is we need to realize contentment. And so some would change. It's not dependent. An external contentment, the kind of contentment that we really want. B, are you content? To is there something I think everyone has? Back at other Christmases, I don't know how from China too at the house. I'll because of the pandemic. Year. I don't have money trying to. Well, you know, we need to do motor and people were uncomfortable. And get everybody together. Get one of these. So wonderful. And that a cabin up there. Who's but you know, a lot of people in Orlando and have a point. fixes every once in a while. Job, we hit our or and if it's not a vacation, it's something like, well, let's go out and or let's to have these fixes. And our addiction. You can identify. Thank you. You are. And that makes the person, makes you to receive that reward. And can even our that they live for that and that. And they drink or they that. Others, they might women search about, and that makes the rest happiness. Pie and pecan pie. But you can, in fact, and you can. There are folks time at the gym or their time and they feel so great after. It makes them feel good, and when they miss it, it's hard to achieve. Or they make some sort of advancement at work. That's what they live for, and that's what makes them happy. But I never understood shopping really, that some people enjoy just going out and browsing everything and holding them up and trying them and but that's what they might say. It's to get lost in watching television and to be able to forget, escape television screen. I heard Jim Gaffigan talking about it. You know, you go there in the middle of July, and you know, he's got his kids, and they're screaming, and they've got $120 worth of food that they're holding, while they're in line. And he knows what he spent so far that day. And he would probably question, is this really the happiest place on earth? Sometimes afterwards when you get the bill, you think, well, there wasn't enough happiness, Yeah. But during the time when you're there, it's happy, right? It's enjoyable. You're with your family, you're doing great things, and so you get your happiness fix. But they tell me that Walt Disney, I don't know if it's still true, but there's a time once in the Fairy Tale Castle in California at Disneyland, he had a special room that he could go and he could stay in it, and it was supposed to be just absolutely fabulous. And you might say, wow, that would be really great. That would fill me with happiness. But I want to tell you this, that if 365 days a year you lived in that Walt Disney special accommodation, you'd get sick of it. Then you'll be saying, I just wish I could, get back to just normal living, someplace where I have a normal kitchen or, closer to my family. Everything, all of these fixes that we're talking about, these momentary happinesses that people feel, these fixes are not permanent. They are real, and for that reason, I wouldn't say don't have them. I would say wonderful. Do those things. They are nice things by and large. Not all of them that I've mentioned, but many of them. But they will not last. They're momentary. They wear off. They're not enduring. And often you need to do more of the same things to get the same high. Kind of like what they tell me about drugs. You just need more and more and more. So, happiness needs to come from another place. What most people call happiness is actually pseudo-happiness. It's a counterfeit high, and it will evaporate very quickly. That's probably the reason that after a vacation or after a holiday, and the kids all go back, so many people feel a real letdown, a real depression. It's because the addiction was just temporary. The fix was just temporary. It isn't the real secret to ongoing, continual contentment, you see. What we're looking for is godly contentment that lasts during pandemics and job losses and struggles, that we can find an ability to be happy without the fixes of happiness that we've come to rely upon. So I think this is important. The Bible, of course, gives us verses that I'm going to call the prescription for contentment. Let me just run through a few of these. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 9. So it says, 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, "And he has said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I would rather boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Therefore I am well content with weaknesses, with insults, with distresses, with persecutions, with difficulties, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong." I don't find the word happiness here, right? But what we're thinking about is contentment, right? And so what he says is, I'm content in whatever situation I find myself. The specific behind this is that he's got a thorn in the flesh and he wants it removed, and he's told by the Lord that the Lord doesn't remove that thorn in the flesh, but he learns to live with it. And he finds out that even though he would prefer that thorn to be taken away, he is content with it, because even with that thorn, whatever it is, some physical ailment most likely, even though that continues, he still is content. And God, he sees, works in developing his character and works with him. He comforts him during those difficult times. So, if we were to imitate Paul, then we would look at a situation where something isn't turning out the way we would like it to, and we would be able to say, well, I wish this or that, but I think this is still going to work out. I think I'm going to learn a lesson through this, or I think I would rather have God right now, and I do, than anything else, and I am content in him. And I think it's hard, but I think it not only has been done by Paul, but it should be done for you and me as well. Let me get another verse up here. Luke chapter 3 and verse 14. Some soldiers were questioning him, saying, "And what about us? What shall we do?" And he said to them, "Do not take money from anyone by force or accuse anyone falsely. Be content with your wages in whatever physical circumstances." Be content with your wages. We always want more, right? But this thought that, listen, to be content with your wages is something we need to learn to do as well. Would you like more money? We would all raise our hand. Sure, who wouldn't accept more money? But having more money shouldn't be the condition in which you find contentment. Wanting it's fine, or even working towards it is fine. But to be discontent until you receive it is not fine. Because the amount of suffering that you go through during that waiting period where you are discontent, it takes away your happiness. It creates bitterness. It can do things to your very character that can make it difficult to achieve that raise or that happiness that you're looking forward to. And so learning to be content ahead of time with what you have is the secret that we're talking about. Now the passage again we read in the beginning is this one, Philippians 4 verses 10 through 14. So look at verse 11 especially. He says, "Not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am." Those of you that are older could imitate exactly what I'm about to tell you. You've already done it. The older you get, the more you learn the ability to live with what hand you've been dealt. And so most of you, you can remember, like my family can remember, a time when we did without. And our tightest time when, and every couple begins this way. There's nothing really special about my story. But I remember when Suzanne and I got married, we loaded all of our worldly possessions in I can't remember the year, our Key Biscayne, Chevy Biscayne. And we didn't even need to put anything on the roof. It fit in our back seat and in the trunk. That was everything that we owned. And then we moved into a basement of a member of the church in New Jersey, a church that we served for a year. And every time it rained, there'd be 3 inches of water in that basement. I can still remember, Suzanne and I, we went off to a used furniture place and we bought a 3/4 bed. You know what that is? It's not even a full-size bed. It was 3/4 of a full-size bed. And she and I slept in that thing. When you're newlyweds, you don't get too far apart anyway. So we got 2 twin beds now that are pushed together. So anyway, but we would wake up and we'd have to tromp through that water upstairs to where the bathroom was in the main house. When we wanted to cook some food, we had to go upstairs, making sure that we checked with the family upstairs that the kitchen was available. We'd go up there and we'd make our toasted cheese sandwich or whatever. And we had one shelf on the refrigerator upstairs. And you know what? We were so happy. We were just blissfully happy. But we could have it better, and so we got ourselves a little efficiency apartment on the Rutgers campus, just off the Rutgers campus, and we lived in a big old house, and we had 2 rooms, a kitchen, and a bedroom that served all of our needs, and had a bathroom too, of course. And guess what? We were blissfully happy. And then the church needed us to move into a 6-bedroom house with 6 bathrooms and 6 acres of property, including gorgeous woods around us. And guess what? We were still blissfully happy. We weren't even happier. Were we happy with the situation that had changed? Yes. But our happiness was the fact that we were together. The happiness was what we were doing as co-workers in the Lord's service. And I think almost every older couple can look back and say, I can remember a time when it was tough. And some of you can say, I remember when I picked cotton. Or I remember when we didn't have any indoor plumbing. There are probably a few people here that could say at some time in their life they didn't have indoor plumbing. Maybe not. That group is smaller and smaller. But I've known folks that have been able to say that. And you think, how could you have possibly have been happy in such a situation? We were in the home of one of the elders at the Madison Church of Christ. And he had constructed a house that had an elevator. And it was a gorgeous house, gorgeous property. It was incredible. Had its own private elevator in it. And every luxury you can imagine was in that particular house. And he was telling a story during our Bible study in his house of a time when he was growing up, and he said we didn't wear shoes. We didn't wear shoes during the summer. Those were just for going to church or going into town. And we didn't have a bathroom. We didn't have any running water. We just had a pump. And I'm just thinking, wow, how'd you do that? Well, the same way you've gone through the difficult times of your life. And you were happy with those difficult times because contentment doesn't depend on these exterior factors. I've been looking forward to hiking the Appalachian Trail with Suzanne because absolutely everything that we have for several months as we hike, everything that we have will be on our backs. No house, no bed, just a blow-up mattress and a sleeping bag and a tiny little stove on isobutane rather. I'm not sure which it is. Canister to heat up our water, to pour that in our dehydrated food. And I'm looking forward to the lessons that I'll learn again because I've found that I've become awfully dependent on the physical comforts of life. And yet I know intellectually that happiness isn't about those things. That when they can all be stripped away, you can still have happiness. And so what I envision is I'm willfully and voluntarily stripping those away from us for that period of time. But I think every day will be a reminder as we are joyfully happy when we're not unjoyfully sore. Every day will be a reminder of all the blessings God has given us. The health and the ability to do it, to be with the person I love most in life, to just thank God. And when we come back, I'm sure we'll be happy for our comfortable bed and our house and so on. But I think it is a good way, to thank God and to learn that contentment is based on something other than these external factors. So, he says, listen, I've learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. And I know how to get along with humble means, and I know how to live in prosperity in any and every circumstance. I've learned the secret of being filled and going hungry, both of having abundance and suffering need. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. Right? Happiness is knowing the Lord, having the Lord in your life, and living and loving the people that the Lord puts in your life. And so he had that. and he was able to get through contentedly. One more passage, Hebrews chapter 13. Make sure that your character is free from the love of money, being content with what you have. I think that's important. Be content with what you have is one part of this secret to contentment. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6 through 9, but godliness actually is a means of great gain when accompanied by contentment. For we have brought nothing into the world, so we can take nothing out of it either. If we have food and covering, with these we shall be content. And we all know that this was written by Paul when he was hiking the Appalachian Trail. But we need to have this lesson, to believe this, and to experience it. Contentment, it takes very little to truly be content. But if we don't learn it, then it doesn't matter how much we have, we'll never be content. So I think this is very important. With contentment can do for you, just real quickly. One, it can help you sail through rough seas. You know that you're constantly emphasizing what you have to be grateful for, what you do have. That keeps your mind off the negative things that destroy a life. And when you're going through difficult times, especially, you can't have your eyes on the storms, on the difficulties, the problems all the time. That'll destroy you in your life. And so you keep your mind instead on what you do have in God. It can also give you assurance that everything will be all right. God's going to take care of you. Lost your job? God's going to take care of you. Don't have enough money to pay that bill? God will take care of you. You have a friend that's moved away and now you feel lonely? God will take care of you. Contentment comes in this way. Contentment can also help us do our best and accept that as enough. And it can help you face life and death with a long view. When you're talking about the death of a loved one, there's nothing positive you can say about the present. You can treasure the things of the past, but in present, death is a horrible thing. But when I look to the future, and when I find my contentment in God, because I have that future, everything changes, you know. Knowing that after this life, my loved one, and after this life, I will have eternity with God, that's a source of great contentment. So you take the long view. And contentment can also give you peace with where you are. And so it takes your mind off the negative feelings and the stresses, and instead of constantly feeling a anxiety inside as you're striving to change your condition, if you are content, the striving goes away, even though you can continue contentedly, but continue to try to change the circumstances that is unpleasant. So this is what I wanted to say to you today. Contentment is incredibly important. I do want to add here at the end, though, one more thing. It's what you can do for contentment. I want to just tell you the story of the prodigal son refocusing his life. And so in Luke chapter 15, verse 11, and he said, a man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate that falls to me. So he divided his wealth between them. And not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together and went on a journey to a distant country. And there he squandered his estate with loose living. And now when he had spent everything in severe famine occurred in that country, and he began to be impoverished. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of the country. And excuse me, I've lost a page here, so I'm going to turn in my Bible to finish the reading. So continuing with the story of the prodigal son, I'm going to pick it up in verse 15. So he went and he hired himself out to one of the citizens of the country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.' And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Bring quickly the best robe and put him on him. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate." I read this in the context of this lesson because it is also a story about contentment, which I don't normally think. It's the story of the prodigal son who was discontent with what he had in life. He was caught up in the boredom of things. He wanted his independence. He wanted his money. He wanted his inheritance. He wanted the fixes of happiness that we know are temporary. He wanted them now. And so he takes his inheritance and he goes off. And he lives it up, only to find that those things let him down. And so when he's sitting in there with the pigs and he's thinking about how the pigs eat better back, the servants eat better back at his father's house than he is there in the pig pen. And suddenly he learns a lesson about contentment. Why wasn't I content then? Why didn't I realize what I had in God? Why is it I wasn't more thankful and grateful? Why is it I was always thinking about what I don't have and what I want, and thinking that happiness was going out and getting these things out there, whatever they might be? And he learns his lesson and he comes back to his father. That's a contentment lesson for us. If you are struggling with contentment, realize sometimes it's because we haven't learned to be thankful to God and to appreciate what He's already given us. The secret of contentment is to have God in your life and to be thankful for the blessings that you have in your life. For in them you can find contentment, and in them you can meet any circumstance of life. Thank you for being here for Bible class, and I pray that God blesses you. For those of you that are watching online, please tune back next week as Ross Mitchell brings us a wonderful Bible lesson at this same hour, and we appreciate your being part of our class. God bless.